Good afternoon, friends, and thank you very much for coming to this briefing session. I have here with me on my left Joint Secretary South, Mr. Sanjay Bhattacharya, who will assist me in issues relating to the announcement that I have to make, and will explain to you any other questions that you may like to ask about it. And the announcement relates to the ASEAN-India Commemorative Summit, which will be held in New Delhi on 20th and 21st of December. This summit commemorates the 10th anniversary of the summit-level dialogue between summit-level meeting between ASEAN and India, and the 20th anniversary of sectoral dialogue partnership between ASEAN and India. We started the sectoral dialogue partnership in 1992, and that was elevated to the summit level in 2002. The summit will have a plenary session on the 20th in the afternoon. At that plenary session, a vision document will be released, and it's expected that all the leaders will speak up before the adoption of this vision statement. It will be followed by a fusion cultural program at the Rashtrapati Bhavan, and Rashtrapati ji will hold a banquet for the visiting leaders. On the 21st in the morning, there will be a ceremonial flag down by all the leaders of the ASEAN car rally. So all the participants of the ASEAN car rally with their cars will be in New Delhi on the 21st morning, and there will be this event for the flag down. And finally, a Prime Minister will host a lunch for the visiting heads of delegation, at the end of which the multilateral activities will end. Of course, there will be various bilateral meetings, and I will ask Sanjay to talk about it a little later. As far as the ASEAN Summit is concerned, you would recollect that there has been a spate of activities relating to ASEAN during the course of this year, and the summit is the culmination of those activities. If I can try and recollect some of them for your background information, we've had ministers of renewable energy, of tourism, of agriculture, of environment, and of trade meeting during the course of the year. It's sort of unprecedented that the number of meetings of different ministers with a group of countries during the year. In addition, we've also had the heads of space agencies meet during the year, and for the first time an ASEAN parliamentary delegation visited India. So there's been this spate of activities, and to coincide with the summit, there are visitors from various segments of civil society. For example, there are going to be a journalist delegation, a media delegation. In addition, there are 250 students from various ASEAN countries who will be here. There are also 50 ASEAN diplomats who are undergoing training at the Foreign Service Institute and who will be present. And the idea is that all these activities will culminate into the summit. For your information, I'd just like to give you some figures. Yes, I forgot a couple of other activities, and I think those are important. That is, the Ministry of Commerce and Industry will be starting from today organizing the 3rd ASEAN Business Fair, the Business Council, and the Business Conclave meetings. Those of you who are interested in statistics, ASEAN-India trade has been growing over 22% during the last 6 years. And in fact, since the signing of the ASEAN-India Trade and Goods Agreement in 2009 and its implementation since last year, the trade between India and ASEAN during 2011-2012 has increased by more than 37%, and the trade now is approximately $79 billion, which is in excess of the $70 billion target that was set for this period by the ASEAN leaders and the Indian Prime Minister in 2009. So trade is booming. A little bit of bilateral FDI flows, which may be again of interest to you, and our understanding, according to the figures of the RBI and the DIPP, is that during the period from 2000 to February 2012, a total of 42 billion bilateral investment flows have flowed between India and ASEAN, of which about 18 billion are from ASEAN countries to India, which constitutes about 11% of our investment, FDI investment during this period. The outflows from India to the ASEAN have been approximately 24 billion during this period. I will leave it at that to just so that we give you an idea. If you have any further questions on the ASEAN, we would answer them. But before that, I will request Joint Secretary South, who handles most of the ASEAN countries, to speak a little bit of the bilateral relationship that we have between India and specific ASEAN countries, and also the activities relating to bilateral meetings, etc., that the ASEAN leaders are having here with our Prime Minister. Sanjay.
Thank you. So I'd like to share something about the bilateral meetings that are envisaged on the sidelines of the Commemorative Summit. The Prime Minister plans to have bilateral meetings with all our ASEAN neighbors in the sidelines of the India-ASEAN and the India-ASEAN Commemorative Summits. These meetings at the Commemorative Summit will be with President Yudhoyono of Indonesia, Prime Minister Najib of Malaysia, President Thein Sein of Myanmar, Prime Minister Tan Dung of Vietnam, Prime Minister Thamavong of Laos. Earlier, in the margins of the India-ASEAN Summit, which was held in Phnom Penh, when the EAS was also held, PM had visited and he had met with Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong of Singapore, Prime Minister Yingluck Shinawatra of Thailand, President Aquino of the Philippines, and he met with the Sultan of Brunei. So that would cover the entire lot of 10 ASEAN heads of state and government who are involved in this process with India. A word about how the process has proceeded. We found that the Look East policy now has a new impetus, and that's spurred by our growing relations with our close neighbors in Southeast Asia. We also find that the engagement with ASEAN and the bilateral engagement that we have with the member states of the ASEAN kind of reinforce each other and help it to develop further. We have close political and strategic understanding on policy, defense, and security issues with all the countries in the region. Economic development and growth in India and in the ASEAN region have also been mutually complementary, leading to closer economic engagement and movement towards regional integration, which we find promotes both growth and development. The trade statistics that Joint Secretary XP mentioned is just an indication of that. The India-ASEAN FTA on goods and the bilateral FTA SICAs that we have with some of these countries have actually spurred trade and investments in fairly high levels. We have indicated our preparedness to engage in the emerging RCEP, which was announced during the last EAS by the ASEAN. The third element of this, the third pillar that we find, is a cultural connectivity which dates back to centuries of peaceful contacts between India and this particular area. And this adds a very strong foundation on which we build our contemporary relationship. And this is also kept alive by the presence of very large Indian communities in these countries. And they are bringing about fostering closer people-to-people contacts. I can give you a background on some of the countries that we will be having bilateral meetings with at the Commemorative Summit. With Indonesia, of course, it's the largest and most populous country in the ASEAN, and the one with which we have long-standing relations of cooperation. Our strategic partnership was established in 2005 and is based on our shared experience and political, cultural, and economic and commercial contacts. We've both been in the past in the forefront of the non-aligned movement, and India has been a very strong supporter of our Look East policy. You're obviously aware that President Yudhoyono had visited India last year in 2011 as the chief guest for our Republic Day. And the importance of this visit was further highlighted by the fact that there were 16 intergovernmental agreements in a broad range of areas, which in a sense set the template for the future development of our relations. Earlier this year, we held the Joint Commission, which is at the EAM Foreign Minister level, and this has taken it forward in terms of newer areas of cooperation. We've exchanged several ministerial visits, of course, including most recently the visit of the Defense Minister to Indonesia. He was there some time back. And, of course, there have been other senior ministers like our Commerce Minister as well as the Agriculture Minister. A very important part of our economic engagement with Indonesia is the issue of energy resources as well as mineral resources, and a large part of the trade as well as the investments that take place both ways is in this particular sector. Trade has grown manifold from a little under 4 billion in 2005 to just short of 18 billion last year. We expect that the summit will review this particular process of political security, economic engagement. We particularly hope to revitalize the CEOs Forum as well as the Energy Corporation and give a newer content and in the context of our strategic partnership. The second country with which there will be a bilateral meeting this time will be with Cambodia. Our relations with Cambodia, you're aware, benefits to a great extent from the Hindu and Buddhist religious and cultural influences, as well as the close collaboration in the modern era. Understandably, our relations are multifaceted, and they are now growing in depth and scope. Amongst the high-level visits that we've had, you remember our president had visited Cambodia in September of 2010, and Prime Minister Hun Sen had visited the year before in December of 2007. Of course, as I mentioned, Prime Minister was there in Phnom Penh for the India, ASEAN and ES summits. Cambodia is also a very active participant of the MGC, the Mekong Ganga Cooperation Movement, for which the ministerial meeting was held in September in Delhi. In terms of our bilateral, the components of our bilateral relations, Cambodia has been a large recipient of lines of credit at concessional terms from India. And there are three main areas in which these projects are undertaken. The first being energy and transmission, the second being irrigation and water management, and the third being capacity building. The energy transmission projects are really fantastic in the sense that they've been able to connect remote parts of the country, and this brings about a certain deeper appeal to the connection with India. In the water management, we've been working on some of the irrigation systems, advising them on how to better harness the resources. And the other thing that we've been doing is providing them with efficient water pumps. In fact, this is not to be underestimated, because the pure supply of water pumps has enabled Cambodia to become not just self-sufficient but surplus in rice production. And there's a very interesting story that we came across when we were there recently. It seems Mr. Kirloskar, most of the pumps are Kirloskar pumps. It seems when Mr. Kirloskar went there to one of the provinces, they were amazed that the water pump that they were so closely associated with was actually the name of a person. And had it been Buddha, I guess they would have prayed to him. Capacity development is one of these projects that in various areas. We've been working with them in the development of entrepreneurship institutes. English language is something that we do a lot in the CLV area. IT, of course, is another one. We have several training slots under ITEC with them. Culture is another big thing of the connection, and ASI, the Archaeological Survey of India, has been connected with the restoration work at Angkor Wat, and they're currently in the Taprom site. And the kind of application of modern technologies that they've brought in has given them very, very strong appreciation from the international community. Malaysia, another large country in South Asia with whom we enjoy very warm ties of cooperation. We have a strategic partnership with them. They too are a very strong pillar of our Look East policy. PM visited Malaysia in 2010 in October, when a number of very major decisions were taken. With Malaysia, the movement has really moved on, and since then we've established, since the last visit of Prime Minister, we've established a CEO's forum in October of 2010. We finalized the SICA, and it has entered into force in July 2011. We concluded the MLAT. We signed a revised DTAA. And of course, there have been very several high-level engagements. Trade has grown. In fact, we are on track. The target for trade is $15 billion by 2015, and last year we were at $12.5 billion. Given that most of these countries are growing at a fairly rapid clip, we expect trade targets to be reached and, in fact, surpassed in most cases. The other area is investments, and particularly in the infrastructure area, and this goes both ways. We are now expecting once the DMIC, the Delhi-Mumbai Industrial Corridor, once the roadshows kick off, we expect Malaysia would be one of those places where we would have these roadshows, and we expect strong participation from the Malaysians in that particular area. Vietnam, a very, very strong component of our Look East policy and East-to-West connectivity. We have very strong cooperative relations with both the government and the people of Vietnam. This year is kind of special because we are commemorating the 40th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations, and it's also the 5th anniversary of our strategic partnership. And so this year has been designated as the friendship year, and a very large number of cultural activities, academic exchanges have been taking place, as well as some high-level exchanges. We expect a high-level visit from India to Vietnam in the near future, and we expect that there would be a similar high-level representation from Vietnam coming to India next month when we have the conclusion of this particular friendship year. Our relations go back a long way. The very strong bonds between Ho Chi Minh and Pandit Nehru are often evoked when we meet leaders in contemporary times. But when we look at this, we find that the strong economic growth in both the economies has been a very strong pivot in bringing about the connections in various other areas as well. Of course, we have growing commercial relations, defense and security. Our Prime Minister was there in 2010, and the Vietnamese President was here last year. The Vietnamese Prime Minister was here in 2007, and of course, the Prime Minister is coming again. The growth in trade terms, although on a smaller basis, is roughly about 1/3 every year. So we expect that this is probably going to get much better. In terms of investments, if you include the investments from third countries, there are about 78 Indian entities which have investments in Vietnam with a total outlay of about $800 million. Most of these are in agro processing, IT, mineral exploration, and of course we have oil and gas. A very exciting project that we are now beginning to embark upon, it's going to start very soon, is ASI's involvement in the restoration of the Misom heritage site. The Misom heritage site is one of the dates back to the Champa times. The Vietnamese call it the Cham periods. It's in the south of the country, and I think this is going to bring about that cultural connect through the preservation of heritage sites that we are active in Laos and Cambodia already, in Myanmar as well. The last country with which we deal with and which is going to have a bilateral meeting is Laos PDR. We have a very long-standing, friendly and mutually cooperative relationship with the Laos PDR based on very strong historical and civilizational contacts. In fact, those of you who must have visited would have seen how deep the connections are. President Patil had visited there in September of 2010, and PM had visited a long time back in 2004, and the Lao president had come here in 2008, and the deputy prime minister was here for the MGC ministerial conference. With Lao, again, a very strong part of our relationship is the economic assistance program through lines of credit, and again it's in those same three areas which I mentioned earlier in the context of Cambodia, which is energy and transmission, irrigation and water management, and the third is capacity building. In this, we find that there are a large number of private sector companies from India which are also engaged in Laos, and the areas are similar, which is agriculture is a major focus, agriculture, agro-processing, rubber, these ones. It's also an important member of the MGC, and we are now engaged with them in the implementation of a new package that we have developed for MGC cooperation called the Quick Implementation Program. So those were the meetings, and thank you.
Yeah, I think now the floor is open to any questions that you would like to ask on the issue of the summit and bilateral relations, and subsequent to that I will answer any other questions that you may like to ask on anything else. So let's first focus on the questions related to what we've formally announced and what Sanjay has added to that. So with that, only one question per person, that's the norm. I hope you understand that. Yes, Manish.
In all these bilateral meetings, are we looking to address some of the contentious issues? For example, with Indonesia, we have an issue of coal tax. And also, could you give an update on the oil deals with Vietnam? What's happening there in view of Chinese opposition?
Obviously, when the leaders meet, everything's on the table, and I think it would be not for me to prejudge what they will talk about. We have several investments in the resources sector in Indonesia. Many of them are for thermal coal. The relationship is going well. I don't think we have a very major issue with Indonesia on the coal supplies that we get from them. We have an issue on that with the Australians. It hasn't come up in the discussions with the corporate sector. The oil, we have ONGC currently. They are working on 3 fields, if I'm not mistaken. One of them dates back to 1988. That's in production and continues to be so. And there are 2 other fields in which explorations are underway.
Yeah. Archis?
So, a little bit on what's on the agenda, what are the issues, will the leaders end up accepting the eminent person's report? It's something on, what are the issues that will...
Yeah, well, I mean, you are talking of the vision document. Nice try, but I'll give you a little bit. I think what we need to understand is that, the vision document will have inputs from the eminent persons group. But that said, it's for the leaders to finalize it and have what they feel would be best in that. But if you read the Eminent Persons Group's report, it covers a plethora of issues which will be reflected in some manner or the other. In the vision document. For your information, the Eminent Persons Group's report was, or the recommendations and the report was adopted by the leaders when they met in Phnom Penh. So now it's a official input into their vision document. But that said, so I would suggest that all of you who would like a precursor to what is going to be figuring in terms of broad sectors in the vision document can have a look at the EPG report as one of the major inputs. But that said, ultimately it's for the leaders to decide, and since you are very eager, we are having a press conference immediately after the leaders finish their meeting and the adoption, and I will offer the chance for you to ask that question to our External Affairs Minister once the adoption is done. If you still seem to be interested at that stage, please let me know, and you will get the first question and you will get the answer right from the horse's mouth within 10 minutes of the adoption. And even before you get to read what are the details, you will get to know that outcome. I'll leave it at that. Pardon? Yes, even if it is 10 minutes later. Yes. Ranjit.
Only 5 heads of states are coming to New Delhi for the summit.
No, I think you got it wrong. He said that the bilateral meetings are all the 10 heads of state and government will have bilateral meetings at the ASEAN summit, which was in Phnom Penh, and the India-ASEAN Commemorative meeting in New Delhi. Within the parameters of these two meetings, we will have, on the sidelines of these, we will have meetings of all 10. Some of these meetings were already held in Phnom Penh, and the rest will be held here. As regards the numbers who are coming, our information, I think he's explained who they were coming and it's on the record. 9 heads of state or government are coming, and 1 will be at the Vice President's level.
Which country?
The Philippines.
Philippines.
Rishi.
So I'm Rishi Surish from the Daily Mirror. My apologies, I missed the first 5 minutes, so in case this has been covered. Are we all systems go on the new FTA in the services and human resource sector? And also, apparently Minister Anand Sharma said that there will be an exciting announcement during the summit just this morning. So is that the exciting announcement?
Nice try again, like arches. As you know, it's our practice to not announce in advance what our what is a work in progress, and whatever would be in the vision document would include the outcome of the discussions. So if you are very keen, you could be the second person to ask a question. And since they're going to be only very limited questions, I think they're all finishing because 2 of you are already in line. So you'll have to wait the outcome of that of the announcement at that stage. We can't steal the thunder of 10 heads of government and state and 1 vice president. This is way above our pay grade. Yes, Ashwini.
Have there been any narrowing of differences with countries like Indonesia or Philippines? I mean, we are like 48 hours away from the summit now.
There have been negotiations which are fairly intensive, and these have, in a manner of speaking, narrowed some of the differences. And we will wait and see if all differences are narrowed by in another 48 hours. Yeah. Pardon? No, he is not very keen. Rajiv. He just wants to know narrowing, and I've answered that.
The Foreign Secretary has said India has taken an initiative in currency swap arrangement with SAARC countries. Is a similar arrangement being worked out with ASEAN? Is it on the anvil on this summit?
Not that I'm aware of. Yes, Devi Rupa.
So you said the EPG report is going to be official input for the vision document. So will you be announcing a strategic partnership with ASEAN at the summit?
This is the third question. I think it can wait. Some of you have done a little bit of research on the EPG report, and I compliment you for that. But what the outcome of which of those recommendations the leaders choose will have to wait their decision. And I've already told you where I stand in the pecking order. Yes, Indrani. Just
a clarification. Does that mean that the Prime Minister will not be meeting 4 heads of state who are visiting? Because he has met them a month ago.
No, of course he'll meet them, but whether they will be full-fledged bilateral meetings, yes, given the timing of when they come and when they are leaving, and they are aware of this.
Some sort of a ration.
No, he's just met 4 previously, and you didn't ask that question, why he didn't meet the remaining 6 then.
But that was in Phnom Penh. They've come to India.
Yes. It's less than a month and they're aware of it. No, this was understood and agreed to by all concerned, that there were some who would like to meet in advance, some would meet at a later stage, because their timings are such that some of them will leave immediately after the summit. And given the summit program, that the way it is structured, some would come maybe 2 hours before the summit and would leave perhaps just after the summit. So the way the program has been structured is in such a way that we took all these into account while planning for it. Yes, Mr. Venkat Narayan.
Sanjay, what is the strength of the Indian diaspora in the entire ASEAN region? And has the ASI finished its work at Angkor Wat? They've been at work for quite a few years. Thanks.
I'll have to get back to you with the diaspora numbers. In fact, MOIA is conducting a detailed census of this particular thing. But as regards the ASI work, it really happens in phases. So the first phase of the work in Angkor Wat, which it did in collaboration or under the guidance of the UNESCO, is over. But there are 2 other phases that will be taken up in subsequent years. The work on the Taprom, which they are on at the moment, is expected to continue till 2016, and that's again the first phase. These are fairly laborious projects, and they do it in phases, then they stop for a while and they come back. And then they review the kind of work that they have done and see how the impact is. So it's a fairly long-term process that will be going on.
Just to add to supplement to what I answered previously, and you said it was the first time. I don't think it's the first time that we've had the ministers or heads of state and there are no meetings. For example, the NAM summit. There were more than 100 heads of state and government. Sometimes doesn't work out. For example, we've had IOR ARC recently. Not all ministers and heads of delegation could meet the Minister of External Affairs. We will be having next year the ASEAN ministerial meeting with more than 50 heads of delegation there. So it's not unusual, and it's just normal diplomatic practice. We've taken the precaution of ensuring that within this, the context of both these meetings, that Prime Minister would meet everyone.
Done in consultation with the ASEAN
Secretariat and the countries concerned.
To ensure that within these 2 India-ASEAN summits at Phnom Penh and at the Commemorative here, we have all the meetings.
Anyone else? No, Manish. One question always. Well, I think that ends the ASEAN part of it. Is there anyone else who would like to ask any other question on anything else? Yeah. Okay, one by one. Yes, just please speak into the mic.
See, when we went to Myanmar with Prime Minister, it was decided announced that Imphal Mandalay bus service would start. 6 months have passed. Do you have any information when it's actually going to take place?
At that stage, what was announced was that we are discussing, because the MOU hadn't yet been finalized. Since then, there have been discussions, and both sides have moved on from where they were in May. There has been broad agreement on a lot of elements, and they have taken this back, and they require some sort of internal processes to complete before the announcements are made, and we are at that stage. So there has been movement since May on that, and now we are in the final stages of that activity. Yes, Maria.
Regarding the Italian Marines, there they ask to the High Court of Kerala 2 weeks of break from the detention to go to Italy for Christmas. There is any reactions from the government? Second question. Last week the Indian ambassador in Rome was summoned. Was you? Yes. You have any reaction about this?
No, I think both the questions are interlinked, so I can answer that. As regards the visit by the Indian ambassador to the Foreign Office, it was in the same context. He was summoned to emphasize on the importance that Italy places on an early decision on this matter. We've explained to them that this is a matter which is in the province of our judiciary, and we will have to wait the outcome of a judicial action on that. As regards the petition that has been filed, this is their right to make that claim, and whatever is the judicial decision in that, we as the executive will abide by it. Yes, sir.
Omkar Singh, Rediff. The question that I'm asking is about the Indians in Somalian custodies. Have you heard anything from the families of those who are under custody, and what are they doing about it?
I think some time ago, welcome first of all to the External Publicity Division's briefing on activities related to the Ministry of External Affairs. I think those of you who are following this fairly closely are aware that last week the External Affairs, or some time ago, maybe 10 days ago, or between 7 to 10 days ago, the External Affairs Minister did meet some of the family members. Subsequently, he also had a meeting with the Minister of Shipping, and they have agreed to try and work out solutions in a mutually acceptable manner within Government of India. As you know, there is a sort of a standing committee which handled these matters with the Director General of Shipping in the lead, while the MEA works in close coordination with them. So the two ministers have suggested that there should be a committee of secretaries to look into it and try and work out solutions and submit them to the Government of India. So we are in that phase, and we have also explained to the members of their families what is the phase we are in.
How many Indians are there in custody of Somalians?
I always answer one question, but as an exception I will do it because you're coming here. This is the first time I'm seeing you here. But that said, 43. Yes. Shubhajit.
So this is about the death of a woman in Dhaka who's working with an Indian employee at the High Commission in Dhaka. Could you share the facts of the case? And there was a probe by the MEA regarding the facts, regarding the incident. If you could share some findings about it, and why was the Indian employee, called back to the home country?
I wish you had asked all these questions on the record before you published that story. But that said, it's from the same institution that you represent. But that said, I will answer each of those questions. Let's start off. This is a case of Indian chauffeur who had employed a lady employee who was from obviously a resident of Dhaka. This lady went missing, and the employee immediately contacted the High Commission, and also with the knowledge of the High Commission informed the police. Subsequently, after I think a couple of days, I don't know the exact days, perhaps a couple of days, the lady was found dead at a place which was not near in the vicinity of that police station, but in another police station. The police were conducting an investigation. They've also recorded his statement in the context of that investigation. Subsequent to that, it's normal for anybody to, and it's standard procedure in any case where somebody is involved, to move the person out from that location. Otherwise, you would be asking me, what was there? He would try and tamper that evidence, etc. And this is normal practice, whether in India or elsewhere, that if somebody is involved in some event where probe is being done for probity purposes, for fairness purposes, for purposes of justice, that person is moved out. And that was the basis on which he was moved out. And subsequently, we have already informed the local authorities that should any further information be required in addition to what they have been provided when they recorded his evidence, his statement, we are willing to cooperate with them in any manner. That's where the story ends, because this is an old story that has now come out. The gentleman has been brought back. He is in the Ministry of External Affairs for quite some time now, since that incident happened. And separately, of course, when such an incident happens involving an Indian staff member, it's normal for us to conduct our own inquiries, and we are proceeding with those. I hope I've answered broadly the issues, and I think as regards the names, etc., if there are any questions, I think it's not fair at this stage, because this is an inquiry in progress at both ends. So we will leave this out of our discussion, and as and when the outcome there is, you will know about it either from our side or from their side. Yes, Srinjoy.
Sir, during the discussions with the Indonesians, will the issue of Anil Dastawade, who was wanted by the CBI for the Madhukoda coal scam, come up? And has the extradition issue been discussed, and will it be discussed with the Indonesians? And are we looking for any reply from them on this?
I have really no information on whether this is going to come up.
Frankly, Srinjoy, we've answered this question previously when you asked us previously, saying that as far as and this issue at that stage related to the passport, and you had indicated that there was some CBI inquiry and that led to impounding his passport, and the answer then was that we had not received any information that required his passport to be impounded. Now what you're then now saying is you move it from the level of the ambassador and put it up to the Prime Minister of India. And should this matter, which did not figure even at the agenda of the ambassador, now be covered at the level of the Prime Minister of India? I think the answer is pretty obvious. We have no details. I'm certain you would have any. I would suggest you share it with those organizations who are responsible for it, and they will put it through the pipeline so that it comes up on the table for further processing. And that's, I think beyond that, we have nothing to add to it. Yes.
So Mr. Abe is the new Prime Minister of Japan, and I'm sure it's too early to say when the Prime Minister is going to visit, as now the elections are over. But is there any congratulatory note, like a formal communication to the new Prime Minister sent from our government?
My understanding is that the next Prime Minister of Japan would be formally designated on the 26th of December. But that said, Japan and India have excellent bilateral relations. Indeed, we have a strategic and global partnership which is very broad-based. And since the signing of that agreement, several Prime Ministers of Japan have worked very closely with our Prime Minister and have reaffirmed the validity of our relationship. As far as we in India are concerned, we look forward to building on the strong foundations of our bilateral relations with the next Prime Minister of Japan. And once the announcement of the Prime Minister is done, I'm certain it is normal courtesy, and our Prime Minister will certainly send a letter of congratulations, but we'll have to wait for that some time. Yes.
Hi, my question is supplementary question. Do you have any risk? My name is Kyoto News, Japan. My name is Sunada. Do you have any reschedule on Prime Minister Manmohan Singh's visit to Japan at this point?
When the new Prime Minister of Japan is appointed and he takes office, I'm certain this will be an issue that we will take up properly through designated channels, and our Prime Minister has previously mentioned that he is keen to travel and have this meeting at the early opportunity, and I'm certain the two foreign officers will work out what would be most convenient for the new Prime Minister of Japan once he is appointed and Prime Minister Manmohan Singh. Thank you very much.